What's up, everybody? It's Soren Baker.
Rahimi.
And today on The Great Debaters, getting into some 8-Ball and MJG. All right, Amir, so we're back here on The Great Debaters. Thanks for being here with us. And of course, if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button. It's right down there and it's free. That enables us to keep coming to y'all as often as possible with as many interviews and episodes of The Great Debaters as possible. So please hit that subscribe button. Like our content, share, talk about it, be about it, each one, teach one, and we appreciate your guys' support. If you haven't already, of course, also pick up my book, The History of Gangsta Rap, in stores worldwide, wherever you buy your books. Now, Amir, speaking of gangsterness, let's get into some with this 8-Ball and MJG coming out hard. How do you remember first getting exposed to them and this project?
For this project, I don't really know how I got exposed to it. I just remember seeing them, 8-Ball and MJG, on quite a few features, and then I think one thing that struck me to this was the cover. I always thought it just looked awesome, and then I just being familiar with seeing them on features, that's probably why I picked it up, but I don't really remember why exactly. However, what I do remember is back when I first heard this, I did have quite a drive to my job, so I had always been bumping random CDs that I'd recently bought and trying to see which is my favorite, so I can kind of put it on my iPhone at the time, my iPhone, and listen to it more frequently. But I always gave it the car test first, so I put this one in, and then I just remember I was tripping out because the intro. First off, I thought the beat was amazing, so I was really hoping that they'd use that beat on. I was hoping that they'd start rapping on it because at first you just hear someone talking,
right,
in a deep voice, and then all of a sudden the voice gets high pitch, and they put all these effects on it, gets crazy. Then it's just that beat is so hard, but then it ends up going into 9mm Boys, and then I'm like, what the heck? So they didn't even use the beat, but the beat was dope, and then it goes into this other track which is so different sonically. It's wild, and we've talked about this before. I really like an album where everything flows smoothly, especially from track to track, and really from track 1 to track 2 on this album, they don't really flow all that well, but for some reason, the way that the steep contrast, it works so well for some reason for me, and I think it's so excellent. So I loved it. So then we get to 9mm Boys, which is one of my picks. So this will be the first track I talk about, even though I just talked about the intro. But 9mm Boys, oh my god. So first off, the album is called Coming Out Hard. Talk about really putting that statement to the test right here with 9mm Boys. This is 8-Ball in 1993 was a different kind of animal. They really proved their point on this album just with that one song, and just the ferocity of 8-Ball's raps are great. It's so Gangster, so thugged out. He's talking about shooting, getting anything he wants by any means necessary kind of thing. And just to hear how much him and MJG don't give a fuck, a damn, a shit, whatever you want to say, they don't care.
They don't.
And they made it very apparent just on this track alone, let alone the rest of the album, which it puts a few more exclamation points on that statement. But man, just how 8-Ball comes out is crazy. Then we get, before the chorus, we get freaking 1 little, 2 little, 3 little trick, all this. I'm like, damn, this is dope. So that's how they're gonna bring in the 9mm Boys. Is when I see that, I'm like, okay, well, why is there a little in front of it? Anyways, then we get MJG, who's rapping. He's doing smooth. He's not as hard as 8-Ball, but trust me, listen to the lyrics, and he's just as hard. He's bringing it, and I'm just like, damn, if this is how they're rapping on this album, this is going to be one of my favorite albums that I've heard. And to be honest, 93, this is a standout. That's one of my picks. What's your first pick, Soren?
9mm Boys is also one of my picks. I think it's just phenomenal. When you realize that they produced this album, that gives me an extra layer of admiration and respect for 8-Ball and MJG. They're definitely one of the best rap groups of all time, and 9mm Boys helps demonstrate that on every single level. I like the fact that we go from the intro to it's all this chaos and weirdness and pitch alteration, voice alterations, and then it goes into a much more skeletal spare beat, which I'm a fan of those when they're done excellently, as is the case here. And anytime that an artist or a group uses like a counting device or a numerical device or some sort of thing where they use numbers in a row or consecutive or some pattern that's based off a song or a nursery rhyme or something like that, but they do it in a inventive, creative, different way, as is the case here with 8Ball and MJG on 9 Little Millimeter Boys. It just adds a little sense of like, okay, I wasn't expecting that, but I really like it. So that being said, this whole song is just so amazing, and 8Ball in particular is very hungry sounding and like intense and ferocious. And I think, later, of course, 8Ball and MJG both get acknowledged and recognized because of Space Age Pimpin', so a lot of their stuff is more in that sonic and deliverance mode, generally speaking. But this one, and throughout Coming Out Hard, you hear a different side of 8Ball in particular, where it's a lot more aggressive, forceful, confrontational, and all this stuff, and it's so amazing. So that's why 9 Little Millimeter Boys is one of my picks. Amir, what's your second pick?
So, goodness, what a song. My second pick is Pimps, and Pimps, it's interesting because the beat, it's a lot more calm. It's a great instrumental, and whenever someone uses this sample, I always enjoy it, and it's been done quite a few times. But for a track that is so smooth, it's crazy the evil things they're speaking in it. And 8Ball, just with what he's basically saying, like, I'm gonna show y'all how to pimp, or how I pimp and whatever, because y'all forgot how to do it, right? But where he says it takes a brother that's hard from the start, you gotta have heart to meet a bitch, mack her down, then rip her apart. I mean, those lines right there are pretty evil.
Very. Very.
And 8Ball is just explaining, like, his views on pimping, and as Soren just said, he's very hungry, forceful, etc. And you hear that throughout this. But this is, the intro verse, he's kind of breaking it down, and then you hear, like, in the later verse, the stuff he does, like, drown a bitch in the tub, rub a dub, some brothers get pussy whipped and fall into a love bug, bind hose this, bind hose that, and blah blah whatever. He's really, like, just showing how he just doesn't care, he's just out to get this money, blah blah whatever. And then one thing that's also interesting is, so 8Ball he gives kind of like the brute force aspect of it as well, not only breaking it down but kind of giving more of like the dark side of it, whereas MJG, not only is his flow a little more smooth, but he's also kind of breaking down kind of a little bit more of the business aspect of it. He's introducing the tricks and showing how tricks are important to the pimping game, and showing like, well, we love tricks because they give us money, blah 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 whatever. If it wasn't for the tricks, there'd be no pimps, there'd be no business. So he's saying he loves them, but obviously he'd never be a trick. So I think it's interesting because you hear 8Ball giving kind of his perspective, you hear MJG giving his perspective, and he's kind of breaking it down a little more than 8Ball is. 8Ball's kind of breaking down stuff that he'll do if, like, a chick goes bad and blah blah this, like that, like how he'll handle it. But the song is like, it's in the 5-minute range, maybe the 6-minute range, but I wish it was even longer, because the way that they're rapping on it is, I think it's incredible. And yeah, it's definitely like an evil song in what they're rapping about, but the way they're breaking things down is really, they're really good rappers, man. I think on Pimps they're really displaying that. But really, I mean, you can kind of point at anything and you'd be like, damn, they're such good rappers, right? So yeah, that track has to be one of my picks. Let's see what your second pick is.
For my second track, I'm going with Armed Robbery. Now, man, this is where I've always been so disappointed, and I've always been so frustrated as a fan who loves rap and loves all styles of rap from every region, every era, everything, that people don't respect Southern rap as they should, for stories, for creativity, for vocabulary, for imagination, whatever it is. And Pimps is a good example of that, because how they're so specific and breaking all this stuff down. But then when you get to Armed Robbery, it's like they're telling this crazy story. They're imagining going to Jamaica. They're breaking down all this like crazy stuff they're doing. And this is like, these dudes are from Memphis and now they're recording in Houston. They're on a new label, Suave Records, later Suave House, of course. But the fact that they came up with this crime caper, armed robbery, is just like, wait a minute. I thought the South wasn't good. I thought the South didn't have good stories. I thought the South was this or that. So when several years later, when Andre 3000's like, the South's got something to say, he's right. But the South had been saying stuff, which is why he was so frustrated. And I think armed robbery is a good example of that, because, you know, whatever you think of these guys, if you just look at the rhymes and the story on paper, like, it's a pretty good thing, man. It could be a movie. It could be a movie. And to me, that's the mark of something that's great. Is like, if you can really, like we always talk about rappers painting pictures with their words and different things, like armed robbery is a very visual thing that you can really see and follow and imagine how that would look. And 8Ball and MJG both, like, happening to be talking about, of course not a coincidence, but like imagining going to Jamaica with this caper and stuff, but and then at the end getting, pleading guilty and all this stuff in the court case and everything. It just shows the wave of what's going on in this story. And I don't know, man, I just think it's amazing. And then on the production side, again, it's very skeletal, but like, I know that's probably inspired by one of the many cop shows that came out in the 80s, I would imagine, or film, because it's a familiar refrain. But the point is just how the sonics work so well with the specific songs, like we get with 9 Little Millimeter Boys, like we get with Pimps, and now we get with Armed Robbery. I just think it's amazing, man. And I've always look at Coming Out Hard and Outside Looking In, On Top of the World, these albums as like, how could anyone objectively look at these, even if you don't like them, which of course I love them, but even if you don't like them, objectively look at them and say, well, these guys can't rap, or not. Like, dude, you're purely just hating.
Haters.
And these songs are such great illustrations of why 8Ball and MJG are two of the greatest of all time. So that's my second pick, Amir. Before we get to your third pick, do you have anything you want to add about armed robbery?
I mean, dude, I kind of want to just talk about what you just spoke about on people, like, just hating on the South. And that's why it's such a common theme. Even on UGK's album, Underground Kings, they have a song called Quit Hating the South. And Willie D's on it, too. And they're just talking about, like, why y'all hating the South? Like, and I agree, man. I mean, there's stories, their raps, just everything about it. It's so frustrating, man. And it still happens today. When I post things about the South on my Instagram too, people sometimes say like, "Oh, well, they're cool, but they don't have the lyrical raps like the people from the East or whatever." I'm like, dude, just shut up. So, yeah, great.
Yes, they do actually. They're right here.
Dude, this album is phenomenal. Please listen to it again. Like, please, it's so good. But we know the people who watch this channel, they got the head on right anyways with the rap music. But my last track, great song. My last track, really, I know I'm gonna regret this pick already. This album is so good. It's hard to pick 3 songs. Honorable mention, which I'm just gonna guess. This is Soren's pick, Mr. Big. I'm just gonna guess. And then we also have Pimps in the House. Those 2 songs are really fighting to be my number 3 so bad. And they might be better, but I'm gonna go with Brothers Like Us. Because Mr. Big is 8Ball solo, Pimps in the House, MJG solo, but I wanted to kind of also, for one of my picks, I wanted one where they have back and forth, and Brothers Like Us, they have solo verses, and then they have one where they're exchanging verses, so I really, really, really like that. You get to see how strong they are as really a freaking duo. People who are in the studio, people who were homies outside of the rap shit, people who've been through it together, and you can see that on Brothers Like Us. And 8Ball, he is once again ferocious. He's also talking about people who owe him money and how he's dealing with them and blah blah whatever. They get MJG. They had like murdered someone, but then he sees like, oh, this one guy kind of feels sorry, and he's like, oh, that's the first step of a killer gone bad. He's gonna snitch on the whole crew, so we have to get rid of this guy. So then they get rid of that guy, and it's kind of shown like, no, this is our thing. Like, no one's gonna bring it down, and I think that's pretty strong. Also, the beat I really enjoy, but then on top of that, how they're going back and forth on the last verse of the song, man, I just love
The
that.
third verse?
Or did I say that? Yeah.
I'm joking.
Oh, okay, yeah. The third verse, how they're going back and forth. I don't even know what the hell I said. On the third verse, how they're going back and forth, especially even more. I really enjoy that, just hearing 8Ball and MJG, both their different voices, their different flows coming together as one. Like, we hear it throughout their career, but I really enjoyed on this track a lot. But like I said, man, close your eyes, pick a song. Even the intro is super sick. Mr. Big, I love that song. Pimps in the House. I mean, first episode. Dude, Soren, what's your last pick?
Yes, it is Mr. Big. Pick number 3. I like that guitar on there a lot. Dun, 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 dun. Like, it's just, it's so good. The beats on here, most of them are very simple,
So good.
but very, very effective. And I just think it works so well with 8Ball's tone and his aggression and storytelling. And yet again, here we have another great story rap. And it's just this thing, man. I just really, really, really get frustrated about people not giving the South enough credit. And Mr. Big is yet another one. 8Ball just destroys this song on every single level. And just his kind of confidence and his delivery and then telling these stories, man, throughout coming out hard, just makes the album so great to me. So anyway, those are my 3 picks. You guys got Amir's 3 picks. As always, hit us up in the comment section. Let us know what you guys think, what your top 3 picks are from 8Ball and MJG's coming out hard. I'm Soren Baker.
Amir, Rahimi.
And thank you, 8Ball and MJG and Tony Draper
Thank
for
you.
this one.
Be sure to check out the History of Gangsta Rap by Soren Baker. He's official.
History of Gangsta Rap features exclusive interviews with Ice-T, Snoop Dogg, MC Ren, the D.O.C, and dozens of others. The History of Gangsta Rap, a definitive look at how Los Angeles changed rap forever.
In Los Angeles, the streets definitely set the tone of the hip-hop music.
At 19, I got a $50,000 car.
My whole angle always was, I'll be street, but I will always tell you the horrors that go along with this life.
It would be penalties and casualties for just wearing the wrong color in somebody's neighborhood.
And once gangster rap made it from the streets to the TV, the genre exploded.
What's that 5 on your TV back with NWA?
Yo MTV, it just catapulted us from being local heroes to national gangbang rappers.
The History of Gangsta Rap discusses it all from 1980 up till today.
It's always gonna be shit happening in the streets. You know what I mean? So it's always gonna be something to talk about.
The History of Gangsta Rap in stores now.